We'll just give it another minute and then we'll get started.
Hi.
Good afternoon. We are delighted to be launching our first CANversation as part of our Thought Leader series. During these exceptionally challenging times, we want to share with our schools inspiring and positive messaging. We think of no one better in our community than Amar Latif to launch this series. I'm going to read the next part because I don't want to miss any of the detail about our guest today. I first met Amar in February 2019. I was not only moved by his speech, his kindness, wonderful sense of humour, and his infectiously happy human spirit. We discussed our Asian heritage and exchanged our commonalities we shared as the children of immigrants. What struck me about Amar was that what he needed to do was travel as a blind person, and this was not available. So he created a company, and in doing so, enriched many lives for both blind and sighted people. Amar is a huge TV personality. Recently, he appeared on BBC Riverwalks, previously Pilgrim's Journey, MasterChef, and yesterday we learned that Amar and Susan are both going to be on MasterChef Christmas again. Susan is also a guest today. Amar is an entrepreneur and a world traveller. As the founder of Travel Eyes, a unique travel company specialising in blind and sighted travel. Travel Eyes can be found on our partners page. Amar created an exciting way for blind and sighted people to travel and explore the world together. Sighted travellers act as voice for blind travellers, describing the sights as they travel. Amar has delivered speeches worldwide. Before COVID-19, he spoke at TEDx Glasgow on being limitless. As well as Amar, I have two other members of the ECIS community joining us today, who always leave me in awe every time I speak with them. Susan Stewart is Head of Multilingualism at the International School of London. Susan has lived and worked in Thailand, the UAE, South Africa, Belgium, Oman, and Sweden. Susan speaks English, French, German, Afrikaans, Swedish, and Arabic. She is a lifelong learner of languages. Susan is active in the local community in promoting the use of home languages, delivering regular parent workshops around the joys and challenges of raising bilingual children. Susan centres around the need to understand the diverse language profiles of multilingual families and how in children these can be nurtured within school and beyond. Susan is also involved with charities and organisations working with visually impaired. Susan is the chair of the ECIS Multilingual Learning in International Schools Education Committee. We are very lucky to be able to work with Susan. And finally, but by no means least, Richard Parker, an exceptional head that, just like Amar, is a beacon of positivity and always has an infectious smile to share with everyone. All children deserve to have heads like Richard at their schools. Richard is the head of the International School of London. He has extensive experience of international education, having worked in Hong Kong, Portugal, Brunei, and Spain. The International School of London during COVID-19 has been thoughtful and considered of all staff at the school, including support staff. And to keep people employed and busy, the school partnered with a local homeless centre and provided daily hot meals. This has generated real pride in their school community. The home language teachers have proved pivotal in the school's wellbeing initiatives during COVID-19 because they were the best equipped teachers to reach out to families, particularly in situations where English is not a strong language. Their support proved invaluable. The school has many anecdotes of the ways in which home language teachers were willing to go that extra mile to enrich family school experiences during lockdown. One example was one of the Arabic teachers drove to every Arabic family that attends the school and left a present for Eid. One of ISL's unique features is its extensive home language program. I think there's in excess of 30 languages spoken at the school. So welcome to all of you. So we're going to start with you, Amar. We thought we'd talk a bit about your COVID-19 and your lockdown experience.
Oh, the lovely COVID, eh? After I finished MasterChef, hi everyone, by the way. Thanks, Cam, for that beautiful, beautiful introduction. I'm not really worthy of it, but thank you so much. Yeah, so after MasterChef in March, I got back to Leeds and, you know, I started to experience the symptoms of COVID. So I was ill at home for a week. And then my cousin called me and said, "Oh, Amar, you know, you don't sound normal." I'm like, when have I ever sounded normal? She said, "I think you should call 111. So I called 111. They sent an ambulance out and my temperature was 40 degrees and I was lacking oxygen. And so I went to hospital, but I remember thinking how excited I was. I was in an ambulance for the first time in my life. So in between struggling to breathe, I was really, really excited that I was in an ambulance. But when I got there, and I was tested positive, I got moved into the COVID ward, and that was really hard. It was a room that was locked, and there was 5 other patients there, and I found it really hard to communicate because there was lots of noises, and as I'm blind, you know, I couldn't get the attention of the nurses and the doctors, and but I was so inspired by them. They were doing such an incredible job. And they just asked me, "Amar, what can we do to help you?" And I said, "Oh, you know, I'm blind." And they said, "Oh, sorry, we've not met many blind people before." And I said, "Oh, that's fine," you know, and I gave them a link to my YouTube video, you know, how to guide a blind person. And she said, "Oh, I'll circulate that not just in this ward, but throughout the entire hospital." And, you know, I told them about how to, you know, just let everybody else know, put maybe a sign up saying Amar's blind. And that really, really helped. Anyway, I was, you know, I thought my number was up. I thought this was it, you know, because I was really struggling to breathe. And when the doctor told me, actually, you've got through the COVID and these are now just post-COVID symptoms and you're good to go in the next 2 days, it was like the best news ever, because I thought that was it. I thought my life as I knew it was going to be over. And so now when I returned back to my apartment and I could breathe and I could walk around and not get breathless, I just feel the luckiest person alive. And every day I wake up and I appreciate that I can breathe, and it's just remarkable. So I know times are tough out there under lockdown, and sometimes we feel stuck, but you know, if you just appreciate what we have, then it makes a massive difference. So, you know, I hope you're all good out there. And you know, that was my experience of COVID.
Thank you for sharing that, Amar. We're all so happy that you have made such a full recovery, because you definitely make the world a brighter place. Richard,
Thank you.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about when you first met Amar?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here. Yeah, I first met Amar when I was secondary principal in Hong Kong. And basically what happened is we were having a discussion in school about trying to change service learning, to sort of invert it. So that rather than having people going out doing, I don't know what, the kind of traditional paternalistic CAS activities, we wanted to have sort of trips where people went out, learned something and brought it back and maybe did an IDU or something. So we just looked at different things. Anyway, the head of inclusion came up to me and said that she had gone to university in Glasgow and she was Scottish. And she was from Glasgow and she was always going back. And she had a connection with a kebab shop. Apparently she had a connection with a kebab shop that every student in Glasgow goes to. I've been to the kebab shop, but apparently it's really famous. It's known by everybody. And she went in there and saw a picture of Amar on the wall. And that was Amar's dad's kebab shop. So that's why he had Amar up there. And she started talking to him about Amar and found out he had this blind travel agents. And then she came back to me and said, "Look, I found this visually impaired travel agents. Could we work with it?" And I said, "Okay, see what happens." She had to convince Amar. Apparently that was quite hard. Very reluctant to have a lot of students coming and basically escorting his VI travellers on their trips. But it was Emma who persuaded him. I don't know how she did that actually. One day.
I just kept saying, sorry, we don't do kids, because we just have cited people that are over 18, and she just kept saying, but our kids are different, they're amazing. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But, we've got blind travelers who are going on a holiday, I don't see this working. So she must have written to me. She had so much perseverance. And then after the fourth time, I was like, okay, let's do it, and then that's where it all started, wasn't it, Richard?
And Emma Bannerman, she's called. She doesn't even know what she started because she only ever went on one Travelized trip. And I didn't go on the first one. I went on the second one we did. And then it's just grown from there, basically.
Susan,
yeah, so on that first, yeah.
After you, Amar.
Oh, sorry. So on that first trip, we had 30 students from VSA, from Hong Kong, from Richard's school, turned up at Heathrow Airport, and we had 15 blind people, and we partnered them together. And that's where it all started.
Hi, Susan. Do you want to
Hi there. Hi.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how students find the trips and what you've discovered happens to the students once they've been on these wonderful trips?
Yeah, I mean, when Richard joined our school 5-6 years ago, he spoke about the Travelized trips, and I immediately put my hand up and said that I'd be happy to help put together that first trip, just because it vaguely intrigued me. And we've done I don't know how many trips now, Amar, together with our school, but other schools too. Lots and lots, and every time we do a trip, first of all, I make the students younger and younger. So in the beginning, he didn't want students. Now I've managed to take 13-year-olds on. And
she keeps pushing it.
And what we started to notice was with every time was something else. So it started off with, we noticed that the students were being very independent and adult-like. So we didn't have to, as teachers, wake them up in the morning. They just arranged with their visually impaired partner for the next day what time they would meet for breakfast, and they sprung into action. Then we noticed that there was a two-way exchange between them. So it wasn't the student helping the visually impaired person. It was often actually the other way around. So we had students who were very shy, students who were lacking in confidence, students who were new to English, and all of this was helped along by them entering into a really balanced two-way partnership with their visually impaired partners. So it just grows and grows and grows every time we do. We've done a trip recently with a school that has a high percentage of refugees, and the visually impaired travelers said to me, but they'd never met a refugee before. So it sort of broadens the students' perspective on life, but actually we noticed it started to broaden also a lot of the Travelized customers' worlds also.
Yeah, fabulous. Did one of you, Richard or Amar, did you not tell me a funny story about a banana last time we had this conversation?
Yeah.
A banana?
That wasn't me.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, sorry. Yes, we had on one of our trips to Tuscany. We had a Japanese student who was partnered with a 70-year-old visually impaired man, and they were sat at breakfast, and John said to the young student, "Oh, could I have a croissant, please?" And the Japanese student, he didn't know what a croissant was, so he just chose to ignore it. But the thing on this trip is you can't actually ignore anything, because it's you're working together and it's all live. So John's like, "Oh, sorry, I don't know if you heard me. Could I have a croissant, please?" And the little Japanese student, he just sheepishly went up, came back. But then, we realized he didn't know what a croissant was. So after a few oranges, apples, and a banana later, John got a croissant. But it was really good because it just helps to, really develop these young, very intelligent people who are often just maybe sometimes a little bit shy, especially cross-generational and, meeting people of, with different backgrounds to themselves. So it really gives them that confidence. And from that day onwards, that, that student was just more and more confident.
Yeah, and that was something else I didn't mention earlier that we noticed very quickly was a lot of students in international schools don't have grandparents around, don't have aunts and uncles, don't have cousins. And so very often the travelized customers become their sort of pseudo grandparents. And these are relationships that form over the week of the trip, but they often continue after the trip. And we all need an extra grandmother or two, don't we?
Yeah, and you know, some of the visually impaired, you know, people that are a bit older, they maybe don't have any children, and sometimes that's really nice. And at the beginning, they're really apprehensive, you know, meeting young people, but then they develop such a bond because the students are incredible. You know, the penny drops that they've got to communicate because, you know, the visually impaired people aren't going to get it unless they speak and describe, and they do it with such passion. And you know, and it develops this relationship between the older visually impaired and the students, and you know, like Susan says, they keep in touch, you know, for years to come.
Yeah. The other thing
I just thought just to give a sense of it, I thought I'd just give an example of a couple of learning opportunities that come from it, because it will give a sense. One of the first ones we did was with older students, and they did basically some of their TOK there. So anyone who's taught TOK know you have 2 issues of perception. So
TOK.
by a series of visually impaired people, and you want to just discuss it, and then you can bring, you know, you can bring real examples back and look at it. Another time, this first trip I went to, we went to an art gallery, and the students basically had to take visually impaired around an art gallery, and they had to describe every picture. I've never seen so engaged with art, because they had to describe everything and look at everything and try and contextualize everything and think about everything, because they were guiding somebody who couldn't see. And also in terms of language, because you're talking all the time and you have to often use metaphor. I mean, I remember I was walking with Amar, and we were walking along a place in Spain, and I had to try and describe the stonework in a metaphorical way. And students have to do that all the time. So the challenges on language, it has so many areas that relate to learning that you can bring back. And also, last thing I'd like to say before I pass on is that also students are amazed, because they always go thinking that, you know, they're going, that classic service thing, that they're going to be looking after visually impaired people. And then usually it's the inverse. So we went on one trip where there was a visually impaired guy who'd climbed to Everest Base Camp, and he just guided us all through. We were following him because we couldn't cross a river. And he showed us how to get across it. And we were like, how did he work out how he managed it? And I remember there's somebody who'd invented a chess set, and somebody who'd done stuff with technology. And students were thinking the way they saw things, and taking it into class, and rethinking about design, and rethinking, because rather than just going there to sort of help, if you like, they'd actually had lots of very enriching experiences they could bring back, which I think is key.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, you know, the TOK brings memory back, Richard. Remember the TOK question that you had set was, you know, to the students, what does beauty mean to you? And one of the students, he was 15, his name is Ben, he said, before I came on this trip, I thought beauty was just a visual thing. But when I saw Steve, who's blind, and his girlfriend, who's also blind, Jenny, and the way that they interact and love each other so much, it's made me think that beauty's more than just a visual thing. I'm just like totally amazed by the depth of, you know, emotional intelligence that these kids showed. Can you just bear with me? I just need to shout. Somebody's making a lot of noise in the background. Vinny, can you please close the door? Sorry about that. Sorry, Cam.
No, it's absolutely fine. This is what we love about these live conversations. So one of the things that strikes me is with these experiences, you get cross-generational, and also a lot of the students that go, English is not their first language. So it's a real sharp learning curve about diversity, cross-generational, all those different things. So, you know, that's such an important experience. Do you always go on the trips, Emma? Now that you know.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love the trips, you know, because for me, when I think back to my life, and I think, you think back to when you really enjoyed yourself. I mean, over the last few years, I reduced the number of trips, but that is what I feel my life's about, like going on the trips. And, it's so inspiring when you see like 10 sighted people, whether they're students or adults, stood on a beautiful vista, and they're describing so passionately to their visually impaired partners. And it just feels like, this special moment that, humanity's working together. It's just such an incredible thing. I just have such lovely, lovely memories, about people on the trip. So I absolutely will keep going on the trips. And the school trips have become very clearly my favorites now.
We all can't wait to join you in 2021 and go.
Oh, hopefully, it'll be brilliant. I'm out here in Tenerife at the moment, in case you're wondering why it's sunny. And normally I live in Leeds, but we're putting together some beautiful adventure trips out here, for next year, because I think our travelers probably might not want to travel too far. So the kind of trips we do, they vary. Like, we go to far-flung places like Peru, Japan, but then we do active holidays. So a lot of our visually impaired travelers love walking holidays, sailing holidays, and skiing holidays. So this is going to be an outdoorsy water sports and walking in the beautiful gigantic mountains out here.
Yeah. When I first met Amar, he told me about his family, saying when he became blind at 18 that he'd always have to have a chaperone to go with him. And I watch you on television, Amar, and I saw you on river walks going down this little ravine of narrow rocks. And all I could think is, what is his mother thinking?
Well, she was petrified, and she always is. So what I've learned to do is not tell her until I've done it, and she knows that I'm home and safe. But that's it. But I find that when you're blind and you can't see what's around you, it makes me so curious. It heightens my curiosity. Like, people say, you're blind, why would you want to go sightseeing when you can't see the sights? But because I can't see, it makes me so curious. So I asked my sighted travelers to describe what's around them. But then, like in that river walks that you mentioned, Cam, there was a beautiful gorge. I could hear it, but it was down below. So, what could I do? I had to abseil down into the freezing gorge. I regretted it when I was in there and my feet were cold, but I was touching these million-year-old rock formations, and it was just such an incredible experience to be part of it. And I guess that's why I think that people think, well, why do you want to travel when you're blind? And I'd like to flip it the other way around. Like, why do sighted people travel the way that they do? Because often, not everyone, but often, sighted folk are so busy taking pictures for that perfect Instagram shot, moving on. And I feel that you've not properly engaged with what's around you using all of your senses. So, so this is why, the BBC were interested in doing a program last year called Traveling Blind with Sarah Pascoe that kind of explored that.
I think also what we've had the students on the trips comment that this, at the end of the day, this would have been really boring if we'd not been without the visually impaired travelers, because for them, visiting a museum is boring. Making them actively look at what's around them somehow makes it more interesting for them.
And it's beautiful when they're describing it, because they don't have preconceived ideas about what they should say when they see a painting of Madonna on the wall, whereas the students are like, they say exactly what they see. They're like, oh, I don't know what the fuss is about. There's a lot of people gathered around. It's just a little picture. It's like this. I'm like, how big is it? Oh, it's just like a postage stamp on the wall. I'm like, oh, really? But then suddenly they say, oh, something's bizarre. I'm like, what? They say, her eyes just keep following us wherever we're going. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Describe that. And it's so interesting. So younger people being our sighted guides, it's actually more powerful than adults, because adults will add their own commentary, but the students will help unravel it as it's unraveling to them. I hope that makes sense, and so it's such an incredible experience.
So as we're sharing incredible experiences, I'd really like for Richard and Susan to share what you've been doing at your school, because when Richard told me about what you'd been doing to support the community during COVID, feeding the homeless, It was just amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Richard, and is it still happening?
Yeah. Yeah, basically, when we went to lockdown, we were very well prepared, and because I knew lots of people in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong had just gone through it, and they told me what we need to do basically, and some other people had contacts as well, and they brought it in, and we had a team that prepared everyone really well. So we're really well prepared, and I think that just gave us a sense that we could do a lot of things because everyone was quite proud, if you like, the way we went into lockdown. And one of the things early on is we want to try and keep the community together as much as we can, and also give opportunities to everybody in any way that we can. And we looked at ways that we could make all working meaningful within the community as it now was. And an example of a difficult area was catering, because obviously catering is not easy in lockdown. And also they're the lowest earning people in the schools. So if you furlough catering staff, they're really going to struggle because and we thought, okay, that's not, maybe we should look at another option, and we decided that what we'd do is we would partner with a local homeless centre, and then our cooking team would cook each day, and that would be taken down. Facility staff would take it down, and then we just said to parents, look, we're doing this, you can carry on paying if you like or not. And actually most parents wanted to pay, and they also became really proud of it. So that's not really what we meant initially, but we ended up having, if you like, a cost neutral exercise that created a lot of pride at a time of difficulty. So that's one thing we did. I think the other thing that, of the things that is worth talking about maybe, is the thing you said about mother tongue teachers is we have a multilingual community, and if you're isolated, having the home language teacher as a point of contact with all those families that feel isolated was really key to our approach, so that we could stay in contact. And your story about the Arabic teacher who went round to every family and just gave them a present to eat, just did it. I mean, nobody, you know, she just did it. A really good example, but there were quite a lot of examples of that, of the home language communities coming together, developing ways of supporting each other via the home language teacher.
Yeah, the Dutch language teacher just also by herself, without doing it, set up a games afternoon with all of the Dutch children, because they were just missing seeing each other. And so she had, I think at some point, 15 children, and then they found games and board games. They discussed how they could adapt them to the online world, and had these wonderful afternoons of just coming together and socializing.
Yeah, we have multilingual poetry chains, and then different communities. I remember there's a big thing about Portuguese poetry at one point. I mean, there are lots of things. And that, for our school, that became quite key. But it's worth remembering that our school is, if you like, it's kind of a very traditional international school. And also, I mean, it is a truly multicultural school. The only place I'm saying it's not is leadership, which is interesting. Why leadership, and I include myself in that, is the only area of school that isn't truly multicultural. And we all know there's all structural reasons that the entire international community needs to look at as to why basically most heads in the school look like me.
You've got Susan there, and she speaks lots of different languages. Does that count?
Yeah, I'm a diversity person.
Yeah.
We all know that's there. We all know it's something that we all need to look at.
I
view people as multicultural as you, Susan, and went into that whole idea of what the importance of home languages are. You know, when I speak to you, I'm so in awe of what you say. I wish everybody could have that understanding.
I think one thing that a shift we've made in our school is obviously away from flags and asking people, where do you come from, which is such a problematic question. And so we're going more towards saying to somebody, well, what languages do you speak? Where have you lived? And then you that's when you piece together the lovely history of a person.
I did say to Amar last time we spoke as well, he's going to find me a traveller that can only speak Punjabi, and I'll translate later. But
That's
I don't
right.
think active or adventure. I am risk adverse, Emma.
Well, I mean, jumping out of a plane with a parachute is fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you mean like you're risk averse, like you wouldn't want to jump out the plane with an umbrella, but you'll do okay with a parachute? Is that right, Cam?
That's all I know. I'll do walking. I'll do walking.
You know, that would be amazing. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Absolutely, because I know the world becomes so limited for Asian people who are blind or disabled. It
Absolutely.
happened in my family with my granny. So if you find an older person that can't speak English, I will come as their...
Great, thanks.
The other thing that we shared last week, which we thought was very funny. So when Amar and I were younger, obviously Amar is younger than I am. What used to
I didn't think that. You look younger than me though, Cam.
It's that really good app you've got that we need to share with everybody.
That's it. I've got this app that when I take a picture of Cam, it says she's 25. It's developed by Microsoft, so it can't be wrong, can it? Really?
Not, it's completely. There's just a little equation missing on the end of that. But anyway, so what we discussed was when we were growing up, you used to see an Indian person on television, and my dad, in excitement, and Emma's parents were the same, would go, guys, hurry up, come down, and we'd all come racing into the room, and they'd say, there's an Indian on the television, and we'd all be like, oh, wow. And you know, I do that now when you come on the television, or you, Susan, I go, guys, my friends are on the television, and the children all come rushing in, and they go, really, Mom?
Yeah, I know it was a very special time, because I suppose it made us feel included when you saw people like us on television. They didn't happen that often, but when they did, it was just like, oh my God, it just felt like you were part of the UK. It felt, oh, maybe it is okay to be a different color and live here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we brought this conversation together so that we could share real positivity, and I think these three are just amazing. So through COVID, they faced lots of challenges. Through life, lots of challenges have been faced. But actually, in the risk of adversity, lots of really wonderful things have happened in their communities. Before we go, would the three of you like to add anything?
I just want to say that, you know, you're an incredible person yourself as well, Cam, like, you know, bringing us all together. And you've got good taste in choosing panelists, even though we must say so ourselves. I'm only joking.
It's a hard act to follow, Emma.
We just want to say that I'm so grateful to Richard for enabling the Travelise and International School Programme, because without that decision, you know, Emma did find the opportunity, but it was Richard ultimately that made it happen. And then when he moved across to International School of London, he brought in Susan, and Susan's been, you know, incredible on the Travelise trips, and, you know, chatting to schools with me as well, and, you know, promoting this, because it's so special, because we live in a world that has massive discrimination. So just to give you an example, in the UK alone, if you're blind and if you're of the working age, you're 66% unemployed at the moment. So 66% of people that are blind of the working age are unemployed. 50% of people with any kind of disability are employed. And by bringing the students on these trips and having fun, but they're learning, the next time if they're a CEO and a blind person comes into their place of work for a job, you know, they'll think, oh, you know, I met this cool guy called John or Tracy, and, you know, they're blind, but they didn't let anything hold them back. So it helps break down the barriers. So, you know, thanks to these guys, and Susan's also helped me to be my eyes. And so it's just been released that I'll be on Christmas Celebrity MasterChef with the help of Susan on there. So watch out for that. We don't know exactly when it's going to be on, but it'll be before Christmas.
And I aren't jealous that you've chosen Susan again.
Well, no one else wanted to do it. You know, it's not an enviable role, to be honest. Ask Susan. It's high pressured, and it was tough, wasn't it, Susan?
It was a test on our friendship, and we made it through. So let's leave it at that.
Yes.
But I think picking up what Amar said yesterday, absolutely what keeps us going, driving the Travelized school trips is that vision of that CEO one day hiring a visually impaired person. And I'll never forget, after the first trip, one of the students standing up, Kyle, saying, before now that I've gone on one of these trips, I realized being blind is not necessarily a disability. And I thought, such powerful words.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I'd like to say is one of the nice things of being in schools is about surprises and things that you never know will develop into the way they're developing. And when somebody comes up to you talking about a kebab shop in Glasgow, no idea. And I think that's always what's exciting about schools is there's always this, that they kind of little bright spots anywhere that can turn into anything, and it's what makes schools kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, you're absolutely right, Richard. There's nowhere more exciting in the world than schools. So before we finish, I just want to let you know our next conversation will be on the 14th of February with Kiran Birsetti. She is the founder of Design for Change in India and the founder of Riverside School. And the reason we're doing it on the 14th of February is because she talks a lot about love and learning. So we hope you'll be able to join us next time. Thank you so much to Susan, Amar, and Richard. See you all again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.